operations is the ultimate team sport, where to win is to live, and to lose often means someone you care for does not. As such, I am grateful to be a member of the most precise and lethal fighting force the world has ever known.
During my time at Special Operations Command Africa, an American citizen was taken hostage in Niger. Within 96 hours, we located him, coordinated with multiple African partners and European allies, and Joint Special Operations Command executed the rescue. The speed and success of that mission underscored the seamless integration of the joint force and the importance of strong relationships. When we called in the middle of the night, our partners answered. I see that from my time at Socom Africa and my time in the Joint Staff, that there is growing activity from both China and Russia on the continent. Both of those nations see their futures running through the continent and is key to their strategy. I think we can look at several of the things that have been done that have not necessarily been good for the people of Africa. I think they're aware of that. I think when we can highlight that, it helps them understand the risks of dealing with China and Russia, whether that be debt diplomacy from China or the corrosive effects of the Africa Corps, previously known as Wagner, in those societies. The Atlantic base of sea-based Chinese ships would greatly complicate our security picture writ large. So working across Africa, I think, to identify where China is not working in everyone's interest is important. And I think also engaging in the information domain to highlight some of these malign activities is important as well.
The changing, accelerating pace of technology, the ubiquitous information environment, and the advent of man-machine teamed autonomy on the battlefields of the world today are absolutely changing the character of warfare in our very eyes. Within special operations, and I believe the initiatives, frankly, that you have initiated here with the Forged Act, the SPEED Act across the way, and the President and the Secretary's initiatives to drive innovation within the department are critical to allowing us to use the innovative spirit of our operators to be able to capture those problems and opportunities we see on the battlefield and turn them into new man-machine teamed approaches.
It also helped in some of the other coastal West Africa states as well. As far as China, I would say it's similar of engaging and countering some of the malign influence operations that are out there. We saw across the Sahel counter-Western, counter-French, counter-U.S. propaganda take hold, and that then turns the populations against our interests.
Vice Admiral Bradley, if you are confirmed, will you commit to keeping civilian harm prevention experts at Socom to advise you and your team?
Senator, first, just to resonate, it is not only an obligation to adhere to the law of armed conflict to protect civilians, it is critical to our success in competition to represent our values.
Technologies we need to invest in that allow different types of logistics and different types of support. Seaplanes could be part of that. I think unmanned systems, semi-submersibles, but a plethora of capabilities that allow us to operate in a contested environment with unmanned and a combination of manned and unmanned systems is critical. And the Indo-Pacific, there's a lot of water across that area. So having the ability to operate in those areas and be able to resupply small islands, I think will be very important to a potential Pacific fight.
Meets today to consider the nominations of Vice Admiral Mitch Bradley to be Commander, United States Special Operations Command, and Lieutenant General Dagvin Anderson to be Commander, United States Africa Command. I welcome our witnesses and their families, and I thank them for their continued willingness to serve our nation. If confirmed, Admiral Bradley will assume command at a time when Special Operations Command, Socom, faces a formidable challenge. Socom is being asked to build a force capable of combating the advanced militaries of China and Russia while simultaneously remaining fully engaged in the fight against violent Islamic terrorism. At the same time, special operators must be ready to respond at a moment's notice as our nation's premier crisis response force. It is clear to me that the role and importance of Socom is greater today than at any time since its establishment 4 decades ago. However, Socom's budget does not reflect this reality. Its budget has remained flat since 2019. Adjusted for inflation, that amounts to roughly a 14% cut in purchasing power. To amplify that point, Socom identifies $757 million in unfunded requirements for fiscal year 2026. We want to ensure that Socom is fully resourced to meet the demands placed on it. Admiral Bradley should tell us how he plans to meet those demands and how we can help. If confirmed, General Anderson will confront a growing array of threats on the African continent. The Chinese Communist Party views Africa as a critical link in Xi Jinping's unprecedented global military expansion and continues to purchase new bases for the People's Liberation Army. Vladimir Putin remains fully engaged in his destabilizing campaign to trade security assistance for access to Africa's abundant natural resources. This is one of Mr. Putin's ways to fund his malign activities around the world. All the while, Islamic violent extremist groups aligned with ISIS and al-Qaeda remain an enduring threat in Africa. Despite the growing complexity and scale of threats on the continent, Africom remains under-resourced in both manpower and in critical capabilities like intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. I look forward to General Anderson's assessment of Africa's importance to our national security, as well as his description of what Africom's strategy should be to counter the growing threat posed by China, Russia, and other adversaries across the continent. I'm particularly interested in how General Anderson plans to use America's economic tools, including the Office of Strategic Capital, to combat Chinese influence. If confirmed, our nominees will confront a global security environment that is defined by emboldened, aggressive dictators in Beijing, Moscow, Tehran, and Pyongyang. They view this fight as a global fight, unconstrained by geographic boundaries and the traditional forms of warfare. This axis of aggressors blends conventional military power with asymmetric tactics, including economic warfare, disinformation, and the use of proxy networks to undermine American security interests. The witnesses before us today will play a key role in the Department of Defense's efforts to combat these challenges, and I look forward to hearing them address these and many other concerns during today's hearing. With that, I turn to my friend and colleague, Ranking Member Reed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Admiral Bradley, General Anderson, welcome, and congratulations on your nominations. I want to thank you for stepping forward to continue your long careers of service. I'd also like to extend my appreciation to your families who were with you every step of the way and will continue to serve alongside you. Admiral Bradley, you've been nominated to lead the United States Special Operations Command, or SOCOM, at a time of important transformation. Because of the efforts and sacrifices of the special operations community over the past 2 decades, the threat from ISIS, al-Qaeda, and other violent extremist groups has been greatly diminished. Now, America's national security interests are challenged by the aggressive and often coordinated ambitions of China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. Our Special Operations Forces, or SOF, are not only needed to maintain pressure on violent extremist groups that threaten our homeland, they are also key to addressing the challenges posed by these adversarial nations. As the recently released SOF operating concept proposes, quote, joint SOF capabilities will help deter conflict by changing a competitor's political calculations, denying achievement, or imposing costs that outweigh potential benefits. This concept is ambitious and will require close partnership with the military services and other elements of the interagency, especially the intelligence community, and with our network of allies and partners around the world. Admiral Bradley, if confirmed, I expect your experience commanding special operators and SEALs around the world will serve you extremely well. Today, I would ask that you share how you would plan to lead the special operations community to adjust to the rapid pace of change on the battlefield, and how lessons learned from Ukraine, Gaza, the Red Sea, Syria, and elsewhere can inform the tactics and modernization efforts of SOCOM. Additionally, I'm interested in how you would leverage unmanned systems, artificial intelligence, space, cyber information operations, and other capabilities in SOCOM missions. Finally, as a combatant command with service-like responsibilities, SOCOM needs and deserves a senior civilian to provide service secretary-like oversight and advocacy for our Special Operations Forces. Congress has sought to empower the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations and Low-Intensity Conflict to fulfill that mandate. Admiral Bradley has confirmed I ask for your support as the Department continues to work to fully implement those reforms. General Anderson, you have been nominated to lead U.S. Africa Command, or AFRICOM. In Africa, our adversaries are focused on building trade relationships while seizing influence from us. China's military ambitions on the continent are no secret, from their growing presence in Djibouti to the more than 100 seaports that have been constructed, financed, or operated by Chinese-owned enterprises and could serve as dual use for future military contingencies. Russia has also expanded its military engagement in Africa and is investing heavily in disinformation campaigns across the continent to spread anti-Western movements, undermine democracy, and promote Russian-backed authoritarian leaders, especially in West Africa. General Anderson, given these challenges, AFRICOM must continue to explore new methods to maintain U.S. security interests in the region. Our forces continue to train and advise partner militaries, but will be asked to do so with fewer resources and troops going forward. I would ask you to share your views on the current security situation, the best approach to establish and maintain close partnerships with partner nations, and how we can seek to engage a whole-of-government effort to address the political and economic instability in Africa. Indeed, stability is essential for any successful nation. For decades, we have relied upon our State Department diplomats and the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, to develop deep, lasting relationships in Africa that can outlast China and Russia's coercion. The outgoing AFRICOM Commander, General Langley, described our competitive advantage against Russia as, quote, not just building military and security capacity. The story needs to be told about the successes of USAID and State Department collectively for all of our operations, activities, and investments. I am deeply concerned that our soft power leadership in Africa has been significantly undermined over the past several months. General Anderson, I would like to know your perspective on the importance of diplomacy and development tools to achieve our national security objectives in Africa, and how you would work to ensure our competitors do not capitalize on the dismantling of USAID in the region. Thank you both for your service and willingness to lead in this challenging time, and I look forward to your testimonies. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Ranking Member Reed. Now, Admiral Bradley, you may make your opening statement and feel free to introduce any friends and relatives you have with you supporting you today.
Thank you, and good morning, Chairman Reed, Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, and distinguished members of the committee. It is an honor to appear before you today as the President's nominee to be the next commander of the United States Special Operations Command. I'm grateful to the President, to the Secretary of Defense, and to Chairman Kane for their trust and confidence in me for this important nomination. I'd like to recognize and thank the current SOCOM Command team first, General Brian Fenton and CSM Shane Shorter and their families for their leadership of the SOCOM force and families these past 3 years. I'm privileged to be alongside my teammate, Lieutenant General Dag Anderson, longtime friend and colleague, and if we are confirmed, I very much look forward to working and teaming with him again in our new capacities. I'd like to recognize my family that are here with me today. They've been critical to my service and to our nation, and without whom I can't imagine being here today. My best friend and wife of 34 years, Katie, is here with me, the grounding rod and conscience of our family. She has weathered the storms of this career, mentoring young, soft families and rearing our 4 children, and keeping me humble and centered throughout. She grew up in an Army family, daughter to an infantry officer who served in Vietnam before joining me in the Navy, and has moved households 27 times in her life, a testament to resilience if there ever was one. Our children, their families are here with me as well. Mary Catherine and husband Ralph, scientists, and parents to our first granddaughter, Rosemary Louise. Our oldest son, Henry, an FBI special agent, and his wife, Brianna, also an FBI employee. We seem to be making interagency cooperation a bit of family business here. Our son, Lieutenant Frank Bradley, a fellow SEAL, and his wife, Kylie, a public servant in Hawaii. And our youngest son, James, a data scientist working in the National Industrial Base and on autonomous underwater systems. So I come from a small ranching community in Southwest Texas, where I learned the foundations of meritocracy at an early age. I'm the son of a World War II veteran, Army Air Corps Master Sergeant, who worked on P-38s from Operation Torch in North Africa to the final assault on Berlin. After the war, my father ranched and served as the Justice of the Peace, an elected judge in our small Texas community. I learned a deep appreciation for our democracy and the judicial system, watching him dispense judgment in our community. His example of service and the allure of adventure were what drew me to the United States Naval Academy and the SEAL community. And I have had ample opportunity for both in my 37 years since leaving El Dorado, Texas. My mother was the compassionate influence. As much of a rancher as any man in our family, she and my grandmother were the matriarchs who would weave discipline with love in appropriate measure. Their influence looms large in everything I do. Finally, I must thank my siblings and the countless coaches, professors, and pastors who have helped to shape me both on and off the field. Special operations is the ultimate team sport, where to win is to live, and to lose often means someone you care for does not. As such, I am grateful to be a member of the most precise and lethal fighting force the world has ever known. On a strategic landscape where the adversaries and competitors challenge the rules-based international order, your SOF provides the agility, precision, and nuance needed to confront and disrupt these threats in competition. But should the need arise, we are also ready to integrate into the joint force, to respond to crisis, and engage in high-end conflict, where the precise delivery of violence will be critical to shaping success on the battlefield. To this committee and your predecessors, I say thank you. SOCOM's existence reflects the strong bipartisan commitment in Congress to ensure that the United States leads the world in special operations, and that commitment has paid off. If confirmed, I'll work closely with ASD SOLIC, with my fellow combatant commanders, service leadership, and the chairman, the Secretary of Defense, and this committee to sustain and strengthen the force, to man, train, equip, and care for our SOF warriors and their families. I will provide the Secretary of Defense and the President candid and clear military advice, and I will remain fully transparent with this committee, ensuring that you have the information necessary to continue your critical constitutional oversight of our national defense. I thank you for your service to our country. I look forward to answering your questions and engaging with you on the important work ahead.
Thank you very much, Admiral. General Anderson, you are recognized.
Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, and distinguished committee members, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you this morning. It is truly a humbling honor. I'm honored by the President's trust and confidence in nominating me to serve as the commander of U.S. Africa Command, and I'm grateful for the support of the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I'd also like to recognize General Langley's 40 years of distinguished service and strong leadership and the team that he and Sergeant Major Mike Woods forged. I am joined today by my wife of 26 years, Liz, a native of the great state of Maine. Her unwavering support and sacrifice have been instrumental to my service and the success of the mission. Liz is the heart of our family, and despite 9 schools in 6 states and 3 countries, she is the reason we have 2 strong and talented daughters, Hala, who is watching from Paris today, and Lilia, who is here with us. My commitment to service is rooted in the values instilled in me by my family. My grandmother, a nurse, served her community well into her 80s. My grandfathers, one a sailor in World War I, the other a Marine in World War II, were ordinary people who answered the call during extraordinary times. My mother, Roberta, a special education teacher, and my father, Charles, a police officer, modeled public service, selflessness, and integrity. These values have guided me through 33 years of military service. My parents are watching from my hometown of Ypsilanti, Michigan, home of Rosie the Riveter and Willow Run, where at the age of 17, I learned to fly alongside these symbols of American ingenuity and resilience. It is an honor to sit beside Vice Admiral Mitch Bradley, a special operations teammate and one of the finest leaders and warfighters I've served with. If confirmed, I concur with Admiral Bradley that it is truly a team sport and look forward to collaborating closely with him and all the combatant commanders to confront the complex emerging challenges of today. My career has followed a non-traditional path with 7 joint assignments across 4 commands, ranging from conventional warfighting exercises in the Indo-Pacific to conducting special operations in the Middle East and Africa, and from global mobility to stateside training. My experiences abroad have shaped my career. I had the privilege of studying in the Czech Republic, where I witnessed an outpouring of support for America after 9/11. Almost 23 years later, I had the honor to speak at the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Pilsen by Patton's Third Army. Thousands gathered, waving Czech and American flags, a powerful reminder of our shared values and enduring ties. And while I've flown several aircraft, the missions flying the U-28, a modest single-engine prop, were among my most rewarding. In under 2 years, a team of operators, engineers, and acquisitions experts turned an urgent need into a mission-ready, highly capable surveillance platform, a testament to empowered innovation meeting battlefield requirements. As the commander of Special Operations Command Africa, I witnessed how Africa, strategically positioned between the Atlantic and the Indo-Pacific, is increasingly at the convergence of great power rivalry and terrorism. China is expanding its approach from focus on economic influence to greater military and information operations. Russia's actions are frequently destabilizing and run counter to U.S. interests. Terrorist networks continue to exploit ungoverned spaces, posing a direct threat to our safety and security. During my time at Special Operations Command Africa, an American citizen was taken hostage in Niger. Within 96 hours, we located him, coordinated with multiple African partners and European allies, and Joint Special Operations Command executed the rescue. The speed and success of that mission underscored the seamless integration of the joint force and the importance of strong relationships. When we called in the middle of the night, our partners answered. If confirmed, I look forward to building on that success and those relationships. I will keep this committee informed. I will be a responsible steward of taxpayer dollars, and I will lead by example to advance U.S. interests and counter adversary threats. Thank you for your unwavering support to the men and women in the U.S. military, and thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, General Anderson, and thank you both for being with us. It's now time for me to ask some standard questions that we ask of all military nominees. To exercise its legislative and oversight responsibilities, it is important that this committee and other appropriate committees of the Congress be able to receive testimony briefings and other communications of information. So if you'll just answer yes or no, you can answer simultaneously, and we'll be watching. Have you adhered to applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest?
Yes, Senator.
Yes.
Okay, just a yes or a no is fine. Do you agree, when asked, to give your personal views even if those views differ from the administration in power?
Yes.
Yes.
Have you assumed any duties or undertaken any actions which would appear to presume the outcome of the confirmation process?
No.
No.
Will you ensure your staff complies with deadlines established for requested communications, including questions for the record in hearings?
Yes.
Yes.
Will you cooperate in providing witnesses and briefers in response to congressional requests?
Yes.
Yes.
Will those witnesses be protected from reprisal for their testimony or briefings?
Yes.
Do you agree, if confirmed, to appear and testify upon request before this committee?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you agree to provide documents, including copies of electronic forms of communications, in a timely manner when requested by a duly constituted committee, or to consult with that committee regarding the basis for any good faith delay or denial in providing such documents?
Yes.
Yes.
And thus ends our standard questions. Let me ask one that has become somewhat standard, and we've gotten encouraging responses from all of our witnesses. Much of the funding in the Defense Reconciliation Bill, the big, beautiful bill, as the president calls it, is unspecific and will technically be at the discretion of the Department of Defense. though this committee will write recommendations for them. We do that because of the rules. A quick yes or no answer from each of you. Do you commit to follow the Congress's spending recommendations in defense, reconciliation, unequivocally? Admiral Bradley.
Yes.
General
Yes.
Anderson. And Admiral Bradley, you in particular will be receiving quite a sum of money for Socom priorities, and we want to work together to make sure it is used for the most pressing needs. So I thank you for your answers there. General Anderson, you talked about about the activities of China in Africa. You talked about the activities of Russia under their dictator Vladimir Putin. Why do they do this? Are they helping Africa out of the goodness of their hearts?
Senator, I appreciate the concern. I see that from my time at Socom Africa and my time in the Joint Staff, that there is growing activity from both China and Russia on the continent. Both of those nations see their futures running through the continent and is key to their strategy. I think we can look at several of the things that have been done that have not necessarily been good for the people of Africa. I think they're aware of that. I think when we can highlight that, it helps them understand the risks of dealing with China and Russia, whether that be debt diplomacy from China or the corrosive effects of the Africa Corps, previously known as Wagner, in those societies.
Well, okay, and so when we have programs such as PEPFAR or USAID, we like to feel that that really helps the people there, but we have a strategic security purpose in doing that ourselves, do we not?
Yes, Senator.
Okay, and what is that?
Senator, these programs are important as long as they provide for the security and prosperity of our nation. And I think as we target those in key areas, they can help build stability in key regions.
If we abandon the playing field in that regard, what would be the response in Moscow or Beijing? I think they'd be celebrating, would they not?
Well, Senator, I know that if there's opportunities, they will seize them.
Yes. Now, on SOCOM, let me just say the SOCOM's budget has been inadequate. There's been a 35% increase in combatant command requests for SOCOM support over the last 3 years. In the last decade, there's been a 200% increase in crisis response missions executed by SOCOM. 14% budget cut, though, in SOCOM, as I pointed out in my opening statement, since 2019, when adjusted for inflation. And in raw numbers, 4,000 troops cut from SOCOM, and $757 million in unfunded requirements for fiscal year 2026. Now, Admiral, the reconciliation bill included $1.64 billion to support SOCOM's readiness and modernization priorities. Do you agree with me that SOCOM's budget is inadequate to meet growing global demands?
Senator, as you've described it, I've heard General Fenton make a compelling case with those same statistics and believe those to be true.
And let me just point out to you and make sure you agree. Reconciliation was always meant to be additive to, not a replacement for the core budget. Absent real growth in SOCOM's future budget request, your command will face significant resource challenges. Is that correct?
Senator, we will absolutely use the resources that are provided to us with ruthless prioritization to go down through the tasks that are given to us. Inevitably, though, with the current operations commitment that exists, That will mean that we will have to mortgage some of our modernization initiatives to be able to pay for that readiness to sustain those current operations.
Well, listen, we will not be able to be generous with either of you, but we do want to hear what you really, really need, and we're going to be depending on the two of you and your teams to let us know that, because if something goes wrong and you didn't have the capacity to cover it, then they shouldn't look to you if this body hasn't provided you with the resources. So thank you very much. Senator Reid, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. When General Fenton delivered the posture statement last year, he said, I quote, "Our interagency efforts also have included close cooperation with the Department of State and U.S. Agency for International Development with the implementation of the Global Fragility Act in coastal West Africa, fundamentally focused on preventing crises in failed states before they can occur." Similarly, AFRICOM Commander General Langley testified, U.S. investment focused on stabilization, conflict prevention, and peace building, democracy, governance, economic growth, and public health attack the roots of terrorism and tyranny more than bullets and airstrikes ever will. For both of you gentlemen, why are such efforts in our vital national security interests and not just humanitarian good deeds? And what do we risk by walking away from these investments? Admiral Bradley?
Senator, thank you. In my 34 years, I've had the opportunity on many continents to work closely with our humanitarian, our AID, our diplomats. And I've seen the executors, even at the non-governmental organization level, provide important capability for the U.S. I also recognize, however, that there are many priorities, as we just talked about, and the prioritization of the budget across those is a difficult thing to balance and to manage. I pledge and I believe that throughout time we have always worked as an integrated interagency to be able to bring the multiple levers of influence and power that the U.S. needs to achieve its policy objectives. And if confirmed, I would pledge to continue that.
General Anderson, particularly in Africa.
Yes, Senator. From my time in Socom Africom, much like Admiral Bradley, I've worked extensively with State Department, USAID, and NGOs across the continent to meet requirements. Africa is very much an economy of force theater, so we have to maximize the limited resources we have. So going forward, we'll look at where we can find those opportunities, whether it's with State Department and the aid that they can provide, bringing and working with the non-governmental organizations. We've worked closely with several in Africa. Also looking at opportunities with the Office of Strategic Capital or private equity, as private firms may be able to invest and help in some of these areas as well. And I think one of the things that AFRICOM is positioned well to do is to convene people to have these discussions, understanding we provide the military aspect of it, but we can provide a venue to bring folks together to look at the security implications of these investments.
Given the current situation in which the State Department is being hollowed out and that USAID is being effectively abolished, have you lost a valuable strategic tool?
Senator, I understand that's still under review for the foreign assistance, and that much of that's being transferred to state. So if I'm confirmed, I would have to assess what's available and how we can best use that for our national interests.
Admiral Bradley, the same question. Are you losing a very valuable tool?
Senator, I'm very confident that however the distribution of those tasks and those efforts are made, we will continue to work with them closely to make sure we bring the best combination of those levers and tools to bear.
Admiral Bradley, what are your modernization priorities for SOCOM?
Senator, thank you. As we look to the future, the conflicts that SOCOM might be called to participate in, I've had the opportunity this last 3 years to participate in General Fenton's leadership team as a member of the board of directors. And we focused, as you've seen in his testimony, on how to penetrate and power project in contested environments. We see that through the lessons learned on the battlefields of Ukraine, even into the Red Sea, and certainly as we contemplate what a future fight against China might look like. So contested environments and being able to arrive with the element of surprise are a critical component. A second priority, though, is also the ability to operate within the ubiquitous technical surveillance environment that is evolving around us today. It provides certainly challenges to our ability to, again, arrive with that element of surprise, but also opportunities. And here, the partnership with Cybercom, with Spacecom, and with your special operators is particularly important. And so those strategic partnerships and relationships and modernization of that partnership, I think, is critical.
Thank you. Finally, General Anderson, if I may, you've had valuable experience on the ground already as Commander of Special Operations in Africom. With respect to Somalia, do you think a continuous presence is essential?
I'm sorry, Senator, I missed where?
In Somalia.
In Somalia. Senator, as you know, we've had presence there for quite some time. We have seen some limited success there in training their forces. The Danab force is a capable counterterrorism force. I do believe that that area is volatile. Al-Shabaab has shown the desire and will to attack the United States and the United States interests. There's increasing cooperation with the Houthis. So I think it's in our interest to have some level of engagement in that region, whether that's with the federal government or the member states. I think that's something I would have to assess if confirmed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, gentlemen, to both of you and to both your families as well for your many years of service and sacrifice. Countering China has been and will continue to be an important mission for both Socom and Africom. The Indo-Pacific region, one of the most strategically vital and geographically expansive regions in the world, we have Socom, and Socom must be able to rapidly engage where the need is paramount over an immense expanse of land, sea, and airspace. Admiral Bradley, as the United States military prepares for a potential war with China, what do you envision special operations forces, what kind of role will they be playing in the Indo-Pacific, and how will you be able to balance that with other soft responsibilities?
Senator, thank you. I believe that the role that SOF has played over its history has been founded on a critical value proposition that will be really very relevant, even more relevant against China. And that is our ability to build strong relationships, to partner and to build capacity, essentially to be a force multiplier across a strong alliance and to strengthen that alliance by doing such. In fact, the credibility we've generated over these last 2+ decades in the counterterrorism fight give us great ability to be able to help sustain and extrapolate that credibility into the Indo-Pacific, where building partnerships with our allies will be very critical. That will allow us placement and access to then help develop enhanced understanding of our adversaries' actions that might be against us. And then if deterrence fails and we cascade to crisis or conflict, will give us the ability to leverage that placement and access for the delivery of irregular kinetic and non-kinetic effects.
Thank you. General Anderson, we talked a little bit yesterday about the growing influence of China on the continent and talked about that influence that they have and the threats that they're posing. What do you think are the greatest areas of threats that you're going to have to focus on if you are confirmed?
Yes, Senator, and I appreciate the discussion that we had on this. I think China does pose a significant threat to U.S. interests on the continent. We have seen how they have used the Belt and Road Initiative to be a primarily economic focus in the past. We are seeing them expand into more information operations on the continent, providing the communist propaganda to the continent. We're also seeing them engage in more military-to-military engagements, which is concerning. We're also looking at some of the infrastructure they're looking to develop, and ports that could become dual use are of concern, especially if they have something on the Atlantic. an Atlantic base of sea-based Chinese ships would greatly complicate our security picture writ large. So working across Africa, I think, to identify where China is not working in everyone's interest is important. And I think also engaging in the information domain to highlight some of these malign activities is important as well.
We also spoke a little bit about losing some of our nation partners who have been a great help to us on the continent. And we talked about looking at National Guard and the partnerships that they have in various countries, and not just in Africa, but also around the world. Just briefly, could you kind of hit on the importance of developing those or using those partnerships as tools to help develop good relationships?
Absolutely, Senator. I think the State Partnership Program is one of the best programs we have within our department. It establishes long-term relationships. It allows engagement and builds capability and readiness for our forces as well as theirs. I think what you brought up is an interesting point, especially Nebraska, who has partners on the continent, but also with the Czech Republic, is there's opportunities that the State Partnership Program can bring these partners together and help burden share some of the of that effort, and so that we can use the expertise. The Czechs bring great expertise and capabilities to help train our African partners, and combined with the State Partnership Program, I think there are some opportunities there without a doubt.
Okay, and Admiral Bradley, short question, Mr. Chairman, please. What's your view on the importance of the space domain with regards to special operation forces, and how would you leverage that new command? If you would take that for a question for the record, the chairman's anxious to gavel me out.
Senator, I will.
Thank you very much.
A very, very fine question, Senator Fisher, which is going to require a lengthy response on the record. Senator Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations to both of you for your nominations. I just noticed in looking at your bios, you both have had in your professional career some significant experience in programs kind of with international partners. So Admiral Bradley, your posting to the Italian equivalent of their sort of SEALs, the Incursori, and General Anderson, your reception of the Olmsted Scholarship. Talk about how in each instance this was important to your professional development.
Senator, thank you. I think I was most surprised and rewarded with being able to see the world through the eyes of a different culture. And as close even as the Italian culture is to America, in fact, many immigrants, a large portion of the country here, but they could still see the same event in a decidedly different way. I believe that experience both deepened my family's closeness, an appreciation for the rest of the world, but also helped to deepen my own empathy to be able to understand the way other people might see things.
So you clearly conveyed a benefit to these Italian allies by being posted there, but also received a benefit in return that has helped you in the leader you are today. General Anderson, tell us about the Olmsted program.
Yes, Senator, it was in hindsight, a transformative program to be able to study abroad and to be immersed in the culture. Like I said in the opening statement, when I was there after 9/11, you couldn't walk through any town square without seeing a memorial to the United States and to the Americans that were lost. Matter of fact, when I walked to school that morning on September 12th, there's a statue of Thomas Georg Masaryk, the first president of the Czech Republic. On that square, you couldn't walk through it because it was covered with flowers and candles, and across the chest of the statue was in Czech, a banner that said, "We stand with you for democracy." It was a pretty powerful reminder of what those relations mean and what the American way of life and our values stand for to many people.
And this was a number of years ago at a time when it probably would have been hard to imagine a land war in Europe, but the relationship the United States has had with the Czech Republic, including in the current conflict in Ukraine, has been a very important one. We also have a lot of programs where we bring military leaders from other nations to the United States to participate in programs at the Naval War College, the Army War College, and others. if you benefited from the experiences in the Czech Republic and in Italy, I believe from my own observation, these programs are also pretty important to building relationships with foreign military leaders who come to the United States. Do you share that view?
Senator, I do.
Yes,
The reason I asked the question, I was, interested in the commonality in your resumes in this way, is I'm very, very worried about the budget that the administration has submitted, and the rescissions package we voted on is dramatically undercutting these exchange programs. I haven't yet seen the effect in the DOD, but in the rescission package that we passed last week, it was very not specific about details, but you can tell a little bit from how these rescissions will be used in state from looking at the administration's submitted budget. The administration's submitted budget for 2026 basically eliminates a lot of funding that goes into this. The Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs in the State Department, which handles these programs for diplomats, the recommendation is that it be cut by 93%. And many of the RIFs that were done a couple Fridays ago in the State Department laying off people who do this work. This is the Fulbright program, and this is other exchange programs. These programs that the U.S. has funded have educated more than 600 current or former heads of other nations. They've come to the United States and gained experience here. 88 Nobel Prize winners are alumni of these exchanges, and the administration proposes to cut the budget by 93%. I'm very worried about that. Let me ask one other question. How important is it in your work in AFRICOM or Special Forces going forward that the U.S. be a strong competitor in the information domain?
Senator, I'll start there. It's critical. In the competition in the information domain, truth is the high ground. We in the United States have a history of leveraging the truth, telling the truth, and I think that's powerful.
General Anderson.
Senator, I think it's absolutely critical across the continent, and I agree with Admiral Bradley. The fact that we have a credible news source and that we tell the truth is a very powerful information operation.
The administration's proposed budget for 2026 slashes the U.S. Agency for Global Media's budget by 82%. The Voice of America, the Middle East Broadcasting Network, VOA Persian, all of these are being dramatically reduced, and I think many of the rifts that happen at the State Department are in that space. Mr. Chair, I'd conclude, I'd like to just introduce in the record an article from the Washington Institute of Near East Policy. Here's how State Department cuts would impede U.S. policy. Dated July 3, 2025.
Is there objection? Without objection, so ordered. Thank you very much, Senator Kane. Senator Cotton.
Gentlemen, welcome. Congratulations. Thank you for your continued service. Thanks to your families for their service and sacrifice as well. Admiral Bradley, Special Forces were targeted for reductions in forces and funding in recent years by the past administration. Could you explain what it takes to turn a conventional soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine into a special operator? How many years does it take to build that kind of expertise and ability?
Senator, thank you. First, I have to say we have the benefit of being able to draw from the best and the brightest across this great population of the United States. Our services do the principal recruiting, and we have the opportunity to be able to draw from within those recruits. But Special Operations provides a very, very valuable recruiting tool for those services as well. Once a candidate assesses into a service and has the initiative to want to volunteer to come to one of our selection assessment programs, a rigorous process both of their resume, of their psychological resilience, of their physical capabilities begins, followed by some amount of training and really grit determination. On the backside of that, that may take anywhere up to a year, depending upon the program. Then additional advanced training will continue. And then finally, the operator or the member will be assigned to an operational unit where, frankly, another amount of apprentice to master progression begins. And so for a fully up and round operator to reach leadership status, it's not uncommon for that to take 6 or 7 years.
So if Special Operations Forces were to face cuts, you don't just lose capability, you lose a lot of time as well. That's correct?
It does take time to build that operator. Yes, Senator.
Versus, say, just for the sake of comparison, the Army can send someone from the first day of basic training through infantry training to an infantry platoon in maybe 6 months. Obviously, they're a brand new private, just out of training, but 6 months versus many years. I think we should be mindful of that contrast. What's your assessment on how drones are changing the modern battlefield? Every day there's new reports of new developments in drone warfare in Ukraine. We saw a couple of months ago Ukraine launch audacious attacks from inside of Russia with pre-positioned drones. It appears that Israel may have done something similar inside of Iran. I know you've probably given this a lot of thought in your current job and looking ahead to your future job.
Senator, I don't think it's unfair to call this a revolution in military affairs. The changing, accelerating pace of technology, the ubiquitous information environment, and the advent of man-machine teamed autonomy on the battlefields of the world today are absolutely changing the character of warfare in our very eyes. Within special operations, and I believe the initiatives, frankly, that you have initiated here with the Forged Act, the SPEED Act across the way, and the President and the Secretary's initiatives to drive innovation within the department are critical to allowing us to use the innovative spirit of our operators to be able to capture those problems and opportunities we see on the battlefield and turn them into new man-machine teamed approaches.
Thank you. General Anderson, given your current role and also the threat of drone attacks from terrorist groups in your future role, what are your thoughts on this question?
Yes, Senator, I appreciate that. It is transforming the battlefield. We are at a critical inflection point in history, much like the industrial age matured in the early 20th century. The digital age is maturing now. As Admiral Bradley mentioned, it's not just the drones we see today. It's what does it mean when we have autonomy and AI behind those drones and we have swarm attacks. That is not necessarily science fiction. That is in the future. So we have to take this very seriously, not just taking on the drone operations, but also what do we do to counter them and defend against them. This is a grave concern for me as I look at the African continent, as there are vulnerabilities out there for our forces, but it's also a vulnerability for our partners as well.
And I guess I should say that it's not just potential terrorist groups, it's also potential insurgencies, uprisings, clashes of the kind that we see with
Yes,
unfortunate frequency in Africa as well. Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Senator Cotton. Senator King.
Mr. Chairman, first I want to welcome both of you, congratulate you on your nominations, and acknowledge Liz in the audience, resident of Maine, as you noted, General Anderson, proud graduate of the University of Maine. I hope, Liz, you'll convey to your family in Maine that you saw me working. Okay. I appreciate your being here today. Mr. Chairman, I have a statement from our brother Jim Inhofe on the Africom legislation from 2008 when it was first adopted, and I'd like unanimous consent to enter it into the record of this hearing.
Without objection, it is so ordered.
As all of us know, Senator Inhofe was a great champion of our interests in Africa, probably the greatest in the Senate. I note in his statement, again from 2008, my resolution recognizes the strategic importance of the African continent and encourages the Department of Defense, the State Department, and USAID to work cooperatively together with our African allies to bring hope to the continent. We've sort of been talking around this today. We just made one of the greatest geopolitical mistakes in my lifetime in the last several weeks by essentially abolishing USAID. And I don't expect either of you to answer questions directly about that because it could jeopardize your appointment. But there's just no question. The term soft power is kind of unfortunate because the emphasis is on soft, but it's power. And as both of you have testified, communications is important, relationships with the countries, stabilization, anti-terrorism, developing good relationships, the PEPFAR program, the malaria program, education programs, democracy promotion programs are essential to our ability to compete with the Chinese and the Russians in the African continent. In talking to some friends who have been deployed there, their view was that we just made an enormous gift, particularly to the Chinese. And as the chairman suggested in his opening statement and questions, there's no question in my mind that our recent actions in essentially dismantling and abolishing AID has met with celebration and approbation in Russia and China. General Anderson, one of the things that concerns me, and it relates somewhat to the AID question, but more generally, is the rise of terrorism. And you mentioned September 11th. That was 19 people. And my concern is with our so-called pivot to the Indo-Pacific, we're taking our eye off the terrorism ball. Could you share with us the thoughts about the status of al-Qaeda and ISIS in Africa and what we should be watching out for and being concerned of?
Yes, Senator, I appreciate that concern, and if confirmed, I will definitely make this a priority to assess, as it's been 4 years since I was at Socom Africom. With that said, though, we have seen the terrorist groups move much of their operations into the ungoverned spaces of Africa, both ISIS and al-Qaeda. We're seeing ISIS active in Somalia as well as in West Africa, ISIS West Africa. AQIM and their affiliate JNIM are also very active in the Sahel, both with intent to attack U.S. interests. Whether or not they have that capability is not clear. And so, to your point, one of the greatest concerns we have is having enough resources and enough relationships to be able to understand how these threats are progressing. So we have an adequate amount of indicators and warnings, and we know what the threat to the United States could be, so we could take action. The access is also critical with our partners to understand what's happening with these threats. And I would also say what is happening with some of the other powers there and how they may be working with them or maybe not acting in our interests, so that we can understand what the threat landscape is on the continent.
Well, I think one of the new duties of your job as you take this on, since State Department and USAID is essentially retreating, you're going to have diplomatic duty, whether you signed up for that or not. But you're going to have to build relationships, not necessarily strictly military, but with the local governments and the local leadership. Do you see that as a priority?
Senator, where those areas, where we prioritize those areas, we have the best return on our investment. I think it is important to build those relationships. I think it's important to look at creative ways as we go forward. One of the greatest powers the United States bring is our economy that's largely done through private investment. So finding opportunities in the continent as it continues to expand and grow in population, I think is an opportunity. And then working with NGOs to identify some of these. I've worked with several in the past that have been very productive in engaging in some of those areas that you're talking about, that we help them understand the environment, and then they are able to execute the actual engagements.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I'll have a question for the record for Admiral Bradley about brain health and protecting of our troops from traumatic brain injury. I'll follow up on the record. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you for your interest in that, Senator King. Senator Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, first of all, thank you for your service to our country. To your families also, I just want to say thank you, because you sacrifice a lot as well, and we most certainly recognize that, and we appreciate what you do to help both of these gentlemen be successful in their careers. Gentlemen, I've heard from, at least now, from 29 senior department officials, including every service chief and 8 combatant commanders, that vacating the 3.1 to 3.45 gigahertz and 7.7 to 8 gigahertz bands of the spectrum would have negative consequences for our warfighting capabilities. Being forced to share these bands with commercial interests in a non-optimal way would have the same impact. Admiral Bradley, does the Special Operations Force have capabilities operating on the 3.1 to 3.45 band and the 7 and 8 bands of spectrum, which would be used in a conflict with China?
Senator, thank you. I have to say that I am not intimately aware of all of the systems across SOCOM. I can speak to my personal experience in these last 3 years. And I do agree that both directly, some of our systems operate in those bands that we rely upon for critical tactical capability, but also indirectly, the service systems that operate on those bands are very important for us as we integrate with the joint force.
Thank you. Would those capabilities be negatively impacted if DoD were forced to share those bands?
Senator, I believe they would.
Thank you. General Anderson, same question. Does Africom make use of capabilities which reside on or make use of those bands of the spectrum?
Senator, Africa being a remote location, we depend upon satellite communications that use some of those bands, as well as the air and missile defense systems that are on the continent.
Thank you, sir. Admiral Bradley, your predecessor testified earlier this year that Socom makes up 3% of DoD's forces and less than 2% of the budget, all while missions have increased by over 170% compared to the last decade. Is it fair to say that if we're going to continue to ask more of Socom, more resources will be needed to enable those increased missions?
Senator, thank you. As I've watched General Fenton make the compelling case about that exact equation you described, I think that is a conclusion that comes out. An alternative is we just do less. We do fewer missions. We have to say no more times.
You're the tip of the spear. Seems to me that we should be doing everything possible to make sure that those young men and women have the best and capable technologies and weapon systems available to them. General Anderson, how do you assess AFRICOM's role in countering Chinese and Russian influence in Africa, particularly in regions where entities such as the Wagner Group or the PRC-affiliated commercial ventures are exploiting governance or security gaps? What strategies do you believe are most effective in addressing these challenges?
Senator, I appreciate that question. I think that is a critical area. How do we counter what these powers are doing on the continent when they run counter to U.S. interests? One of the areas when I was at Socom Africa that was useful was engaging with the partners and explaining to them what those risks were when they were working with these partners, especially when Wagner was trying to expand into the Sahel. While they have gotten a foothold there, we were able to explain to them the risks that would entail, the corrosive nature of those engagements, the lack of human rights that those nations bring. And so that was helpful in buffering. It also helped in some of the other coastal West Africa states as well. As far as China, I would say it's similar of engaging and countering some of the malign influence operations that are out there. We saw across the Sahel counter-Western, counter-French, counter-U.S. propaganda take hold, and that then turns the populations against our interests.
Wouldn't it be fair to say that there is a combination of hard power, military power, but there's also the desire to have not just that stick, but the ability to offer other capabilities as well? Can you give me some examples of what we would call soft power that might be available or be very helpful to you based upon our current situations in Africa?
Yes, Senator. Across the breadth of what our nation brings is important. Whether that's called hard power or soft power, it's influence, and how can we engage constructively with them? Can we encourage investment? Can we open sources to critical minerals? Can we partner with the nations that are in our interest that also benefit them as well? Those are opportunities as well that are slightly outside the military lane, but I do believe we have the opportunity to convene some of the right folks to have these types of discussions. And then, again, engagement and building trust and partnership is critical, as we found in the past.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Ernst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, gentlemen, both for being here today and your continued service to our great United States, your families as well. We appreciate their selfless service and sacrifice on your behalf as well. So, General Anderson, we'll start with you, and we'll continue to build upon what Senator Rounds was discussing. History has shown that when America reduces her presence, our adversaries are quickly seeking to fill the void. So sustained U.S. leadership is essential to deterring those threats and preserving stability. This is something we talked about in my office, that I firmly believe that presence is power. power, especially when it comes to the forward posture of our American service members. So, General Anderson, can you speak to why continued American leadership around the globe is essential, and in your particular case in Africa, why it is essential that we maintain a presence and how it is in America's best interests?
Senator, I appreciate the question, and I agree that that engagement is absolutely vital. Having that access and that engagement and building of trust makes a difference when times of crisis or in times of need. Mm-hmm. When we call in the middle of the night, we want our partners to answer, and we want them to help. Mm-hmm. At the same time, it needs to be in our mutual interest. One thing I found as you talked about in Socom Africa is that we could often bring parties together that normally would not. We could bring some of the European partners together with the African partners and create a dialogue. And sometimes just that American presence as a trusted partner opened that door to be more effective. I would also say, as you mentioned, small investment in small teams go a long way on the continent in working with our African partners. As an example, I was the first general officer to go back to Cote d'Ivoire after 19 years. The very first person who met me was the chief of the army, and the first thing he told me was how he thanked me for the training that a special forces team had given him as a captain 19 years before. And he said it was the best training he ever had, and he was very excited that we were able to restore relationship because it was the best training he had received, and he was looking forward to that for his army. And it didn't take a persistent presence. It took some episodic engagements and continued investment in that partner. What I have found in Africa is many of those partners that we work with are incredibly good partners. They're not looking for a handout, they're looking for a helping hand. And if we can help them build that capacity, they're willing to try to stand on their own.
That is amazing. And thank you for reaffirming what I have always believed as well, is that relationships matter. And our friends will never forget that. Neither will our enemies. So we'll continue on. We could talk more about China's presence. I think a number of our colleagues have covered down on that. So we'll go ahead and turn to Socom and Admiral Bradley. Thank you so much for your continued leadership within the organization. And we've already talked a little bit about the fact that Socom, you've earned the reputation that the command can do more with less. And I have heard Socom commander after Socom commander come in front of the committee and state, it really doesn't matter, we'll salute smartly and move out and execute our mission. But we are reaching a point where, as you have very clearly stated today, that if you don't continue to see growth, especially adjust for inflation within the department, that you will have to do less. You will have to dig in deeper and make the necessary cuts. So we are in an era of heightened threats and expanding mission demands. I believe that do more with less mindset can no longer be sustainable. Do you agree with that?
Senator, I do. In fact, we've adopted the term less with less to ensure we apply the ruthless prioritization to achieve the highest priority of those missions.
Mm-hmm. And given the increasingly complex threat environment, we need to be able to strengthen SOCOM's capacity to deter our near-peer adversaries. So that does require us moving beyond a stagnant budget. So if confirmed, Admiral Bradley, then what is the vision for SOCOM and how do you do that ruthless prioritization?
Senator, thank you. If confirmed, our priorities are the priorities of the department. Defend the homeland, ensure that we deter China, and ensure that our force multiplication of an already strong alliance is strengthened even further.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much. And again, to your families, thank you for your sacrifice as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Ernst. Senator Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, Admiral, I'm glad that you ended that way, because those sort of prioritizations of America, which is defend the homeland and really this pivot to the Indo-Pacific, has been absent in a lot of the questions that have been asked. A lot of the questions that have been asked, I feel like I've been teleported into the Foreign Relations Committee. And I want to ask you, since it was brought up, I had no plan to talk about this. I'm going to just read off a few things. $500,000 for electric buses in Rwanda, $3.3 million for civic engagement in Zimbabwe, $300,000 hold the Pride Parade in Lesotho, and almost $900,000 for electrical reforms and voter education in Kenya, $1.2 million for Afrobarometer public opinion survey, $116,000 for media strengthening activity in Liberia, $8,000 for promoting vegan food in Zambia, African Hive camping and tours to create adventure camps for backpackers, graphic design training in Nigeria. Do you think these are in the best interest of the United States of America, given the scarcity that we have?
Senator, I know there are a lot of priorities that have to be balanced through the budget process.
I know that, and I appreciate your story. You were very willing to opine about other things that were sort of policy matters in my view. These are policy matters, and I think that when we do this stuff, it totally undermines the desire to have real soft power. Like, I'm not disputing the idea that soft power exists. My contention is that all of this nonsense that continues to be defended in many ways inhibits the ability to do exactly what you're articulating, which is there are smart things to do that aren't just about blowing things up and killing people. But that has been crowded out with a mission creep in this wandering foreign policy that just believes that we can just do all this do-gooding stuff around the world. And getting back to what you said at the end of your last statement, which is defend the homeland and understand that our chief threat is in China. That's what I wanted to ask your questions about, and I'm going to. But I can't let this go on just without being responded to. Like, we're moving away from this stuff, whether people like it or not. Like, the American people don't support it. We have an administration that wants to move away from this stuff. And I applaud it. I might be in a minority on this committee. I don't really know. I don't really care, because I think that that's in the best interest of the United States, and we can have a robust debate about it. But I do want to ask you, because we're in this great powers competition, how does SOCOM assess the right balance between sort of the counterterrorism mission that's existed for a long time and isn't necessarily going away versus this kind of direct action, and especially as it relates to irregular deterrence and kind of this gray zone activity that's happening in the South China Sea and places where our allies are really in real threat. And we're not talking about electric buses in Rwanda. We're talking about, communist China here.
Senator, thank you. Having had the opportunity to be a part of our counterterrorism operations, since 9/11, I've seen us achieve some great successes to diminish the threat against the homeland. The credibility that has come from that gives us very powerful entree with the alliance members in the Indo-Pacific. All of our national defense strategies since 2018, the INDSG, all illuminate the importance of that alliance. I believe that force multiplication effort is a critical capability. As you know, General Fenton is the coordinating authority for counter-VEO as well within the Department of Defense, and so still maintains a principal responsibility to be able to oversee and advise the Secretary on the approach for counterterrorism. The most acute of those threats, those VEOs with external operations, aspiration, and capability are the top priority threats that we as a whole integrated interagency orient our priorities against. And I believe in many cases, in one instance in particular, the case of the Philippines is a great example.
I was going to ask you about,
that where our work with the Filipinos over the last 2 decades has allowed them to be able to keep that terrorist threat at bay, and frankly allowed us to weather a very difficult diplomatic season with a particular leader there, and now come out an even stronger ally.
I agree. I think that's a great example, which leads sort of like the last question I have in limited time. Do you feel like our other really important allies in that region, say Australia and Japan, are prepared or sufficiently ready to work alongside us the way the Philippines has?
Sir, I absolutely believe the Australians are, and I believe our other allies are working to come to that place as well.
Okay. Thank you. Good luck. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Senator Schmidt. Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations to both of you on your nominations. So the American military is built to defeat our enemies, not to create more of them. And that is why Republican and Democratic administrations have worked to reduce risks to innocent civilians as part of military operations. In fact, the last Trump administration issued DOD's first instruction to establish policies to mitigate civilian harm after concerns grew about civilian casualties in the campaign against ISIS. Now, one of the tools that commanders now have in the toolkit is working with civilian harm and mitigation response advisors, from refining war games to real attack planning in the Middle East and Africa operations, and more. Vice Admiral Bradley, your predecessor at Special Operations Command, recently said that these experts, quote, assisted commanders and their staffs in mitigating civilian harm without compromising lethality. What's more, their knowledge, quote, enhanced precision, preserving legitimacy, and enabling mission success. So, Vice Admiral Bradley, if you are confirmed, will you commit to keeping civilian harm prevention experts at Socom to advise you and your team?
Senator, first, just to resonate, it is not only an obligation to adhere to the law of armed conflict to protect civilians, it is critical to our success in competition to represent our values. I believe that every uniformed, every civilian, and every contractor that is employed or in oversight of the use of lethal force has a critical obligation to be able to do that, and I do commit to keeping that as a focus for our command,
Thank you.
if confirmed.
That is a strong answer, and I appreciate it. You know, other tools in the toolkit here are the Civilian Harm Mitigation and Response Action Plan and DOD's policy instruction on civilian harm, which outline DOD's plans and policies to reduce civilian harm risks. Africom has made progress in implementing these policies, including through training allies and partners on how to reduce risks to innocent civilians. We are serving as a model that our other partners are now beginning to adopt. In May, the Nigerian Air Force announced its own civilian harm prevention plan. These are efforts that save innocent lives. Lieutenant General Anderson, if you're confirmed, will you carry forward these efforts to integrate civilian harm mitigation planning into Africom operations and train allies in the region to help them do the same?
Senator, to echo Vice Admiral Bradley's importance of this, this is a critically important reason, show of our values. It's also important that we maintain the laws of armed conflict, and when we engage with our partners, that we help them educate and that we model this. And this has been something that when I was at Special Operations Command Africa, we did. We worked with partners, and when we saw things or heard of things that were credible, we encouraged them to investigate and to look into this, and then we gave them assistance as needed in order for them to conduct their own investigation. So I will continue, if confirmed, to take that on at Africom.
I appreciate that. I want to hit one other point here, because we also need to reduce harm to our own special operators. I've worked with Senator Ernst and others on this committee for years to address high levels of brain injury caused by blast overpressure. Exposed service members have reported debilitating symptoms, from seizures to depressions to suicidality. And now preliminary research is showing high rates of heart disease, chronic pain, hypertension, even links to brain cancer and neurodegenerative diseases. Clearly, we have a lot more we need to learn. So let me ask, Vice Admiral Bradley, if confirmed, you'll oversee tens of thousands of special operations personnel. Do you support DoD partnering with outside experts to study the long-term effects of blast overpressure?
Senator, I do. I have seen great benefit from our partnerships with academia and other organizations that are studying this problem critically. Our number one soft truth is that people are more important than hardware, and the critical part of those people is the intellectual capacity. Of course, that is jeopardized by these brain health issues, and we see them as a critical contract with our operators and our operators' families to ensure that we keep them sustainable.
Well, I appreciate that very, very much. If you're confirmed, I'll be calling on you to help us with that. There's language in both the House and the Senate NDAA that would help us get this study, and there are lots of organizations like Home Base Massachusetts who have the expertise to help us get these answers. We owe this to our service members. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Warren. Senator Tuberville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Thanks for both of you. Thank you for what you've done for our country over your careers, you and your family. What a sacrifice it's been, but done an outstanding job. Admiral, I think far too long we've had our eyes on other things and not on our hemisphere, whether it's illegal migrants, drugs, or both. So what is Special Operations community doing to assist the militaries and governments in our hemisphere like Panama to combat narco-terrorists?
Senator, in my current capacity, I'm not privy to all of the activities that Socom is engaged in the Southern Hemisphere. But in listening and watching General Fenton and his leadership over these last 3 years, I know that the partnerships that our teams have been engaging in and developing remain critical to being able to help them build capacity to be able to defend themselves, but also to provide security locally, which of course helps to prevent and secure our southern border as well.
Yeah, you're very. I'm sure you're up on the point of the Darien Gap and the problems it's caused over the years, and relationship with our special ops down in that area, training people. That'll probably be in your forte going forward. What's your thoughts about cooperation activities with Latin America as going into this job?
Yes, sir. I think as the counterterrorism fight informs us, it is far better to find the root of the problem well away from our borders than it is to have to defend them internal to the United States. And so if confirmed, making it a priority to provide assistance to all of our combatant commanders as far forward as possible, and with those partnered forces to help them to be able to secure their own territory.
Yeah, we have problems all over the world, but if we don't watch our back door, then we're going to have really problems within our country, which we already have. General, I think we need to be reinforcing our military presence in Africa. Unfortunately, under the previous administration, we seemed like we were doing just the opposite. Niger, you and I talked about this in a meeting in my office. The vacuum that was caused there, China, Russia, Iran, were all too happy to feel the things that we were doing there. What's your assessment of our withdrawal from Air Base 201, and have we learned from these lessons, and your thoughts about maybe the future there?
Senator, I appreciate that question, and there was significant investment that went into that airbase. It was in a key area for us to be able to monitor the threat, so the loss of that is one that we'll have to find creative ways to continue to get the indicators and warnings of what the terrorists are doing in that area. I think we also have to understand that there is some volatility across the continent, so how do we make smart investments with the partners that we can continue to sustain? I will say that the relationships that we built in Niger with the military over several decades are still there. When the time is right, I believe there will be an opportunity, but that time will have to be determined, and if confirmed, I'll look at what that is.
Yeah, after your confirmation, I guess by telling the committee and people even watching at home, why do we need to have presence in Africa? What is your thoughts?
So Africa is key to any strategy. It sits on strategic terrain, just the waterways that it forms between the Straits of Gibraltar all the way down through the Suez Canal and the Red Sea. It is critical minerals and resources that are on the continent that we need for the future economy. Both China and Russia see their strategies going through the continent, and they are going to engage there. And so we can cede that ground or we can compete in that ground. And I think we have a very powerful tool to compete with. As Admiral Bradley mentioned, nobody brings more credibility to the counterterrorism fight than the U.S. As a matter of fact, when we rescued that hostage in Niger, the next morning was an influential blogger that posted, "The Americans came like the lion in the night. They killed their enemies and rescued their own." No other nation on earth could do that. And that is a powerful symbol across the continent and around the world of what our military and what the United States is capable of. And I do think that some level of engagement in Africa does matter. I'd agree it's an economy of force, but a small investment goes a long way so that we don't have strategic surprise that then distracts the United States from focusing on the rising threats in the Pacific and other areas.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Tuberville, and well said, General Anderson. Senator Sheehy.
Thank you, Chairman. General, I want to thank you for what you just said there, because we've been hearing a lot today about how pulling back investment in certain programs in Africa is going to end the world and cede the entire dominance of China. The reality is what you just said is what the real power projection is. When we can display to the world that we are going to protect our interests and our people ruthlessly, no matter what, that is what the real power projection of the U.S. military is about. The soft stuff is absolutely important. Being able to project economic power and stability is important, but nothing will ever supersede what you just said. So thanks for saying that. Thanks to both of you and your families for what you've done for this country and continue to do. Admiral, over to you. We're facing a very challenging naval atmosphere against China. They're building ships faster than we can, 230 times faster than we do, as a matter of fact. So if we should face a maritime conflict, our most asymmetric advantage is going to be our undersea special operations capability, how we can project that power manned and unmanned. Would you take a moment here and just explain to me your commitment to that program and how we're going to make sure it remains dominant?
Senator, thank you, and thanks for your service in that community as well. I believe from my time serving in our undersea community that the partnership between special operations and the Navy in this regard is singular in the world in its sophistication. The ability to arrive with the element of surprise is unparalleled through this approach. It gives us advantage, asymmetric advantage, not just in warfighting, but also in the ability in competition and in crisis. The special operations community has a unique and growing and deepening relationship with the United States Navy in this regard. And if confirmed, I would very much look forward to advancing that and continuing to maintain that asymmetry.
Thank you. And for both of you, a similar question. Last time we fought a war in Indo-PACOM, we had about 5,000 seaplanes that were a critical part of our logistical and tactical network across the region, from moving insurgents to spies, to supplies, to logistics, to rescuing ship's crew and down airmen in areas that at the time were out of range. Right now, we have precisely 0 planes that can land, or any aircraft that can land on water in the entire U.S. military. In general, with your background in non-standard aviation, as I do too, I used to fly seaplanes and PC-12s like you. This is a capability that as we are entering a new era of great power competition, I believe we need to reinvest in, and Socom will be the tip of that spear. So I recently worked with Indo-PACOM to try to reinvigorate the ability for them to access this capability. Would either of you care to comment on what you think amphibious aviation could mean for our ability to project power all over the world?
Senator, I appreciate the question. I do think there's several types of new technologies, emerging technologies we need to invest in that allow different types of logistics and different types of support. Seaplanes could be part of that. I think unmanned systems, semi-submersibles, but a plethora of capabilities that allow us to operate in a contested environment with unmanned, and a combination of manned and unmanned systems is critical. And the Indo-Pacific, there's a lot of water across that area, so having the ability to operate in those areas and be able to resupply small islands, I think will be very important to a potential Pacific fight.
Yeah, I would say in an AO that in some cases is over 90% water, having the entire AO be a runway seems like a pretty good idea. I was recently in Kenya, Djibouti, Egypt. I went over there for a reason. We all served many years in the Middle East, but Africa is now going to have 2.5 billion people become the most populous continent in the world here, potentially in the next decade. And it's very possible the 21st century can be an African century. And as that 2.5 billion people plug into the global economy, as they become global citizens, active on the internet, as they become banked, as they become crypto citizens, we are going to have to reckon with the great power competition that's happening there. And as I look at some of our engagement across the Horn of Africa and through all of Africa, really, what do you foresee as your biggest challenge is going to be? What do your first 90, 120 days look like as you try to grapple with the fact that we have a massive geopolitical battlefield emerging?
Senator, I appreciate those comments, and I agree that Africa is growing rapidly. There's a large youth population. That youth can either be channeled to contribute to the global economy, or they could become terrorists or other nefarious actions. What I would say to that is that the first thing I would look at is, do we have the right access and placement in order to have the indicators and warnings to prevent that strategic surprise? And to your point earlier, I think it's a combination of hard power and soft power, as you put it, but having the relationships and the trust to have the access when needed in order to project power, to be able to counter terrorism, to be able to respond to a crisis somewhere on the continent. And then also to understand what other powers are doing. So my first few days, if confirmed, would be focused on assessing that, and do we have the right posture and footprint, and what can we do to maximize the indicators and warnings?
Thank you. I'm out of time, but I would also encourage you to take a look at Camp Simba and the upgrades required there. It's a key point, power projection for us in that region. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Sheehy. Let me ask both of you, with regard to the first set of questions Senator Sheehy brought up about seaplanes and that sort of capacity, is there anything on the horizon in that regard?
So, Senator, there are a few out there that are being developed. I know DARPA is working on a project. There are some other companies that are looking at seaplanes and unmanned seaplanes as well.
And Senator, across special operations, there have been experiments with that kind of capability.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral Bradley, General Anderson, thank you for being here and for continuing to volunteer to serve our nation. Socom and Africom both leverage economies of force principles, so applying limited resources for having an outsized impact. And this requires some careful planning and using the right assets against the right problem. Within this economy of force principle, how important are interagency partners like the Department of State for Socom and Africon's campaign plan?
Senator, I'll start. Across the special operations community, our partnership with the integrated interagency, also our law enforcement, federal, and frankly, even our local law enforcement partnerships have been critical to us over these last 25 years. And I see that as nothing but growing in the future. If confirmed as a Socom commander, the relationships that we have inside our integrated interagency, cultivating those and sustaining them, I think would have to be a top priority. I can tell you that today, the state of those relationships from my current experience is frankly a high water mark, certainly of my 34 years, and I suspect even longer than that.
And General, do you share that view?
Senator, I agree that we have very limited resources, and so we have to partner across all government agencies to maximize those resources and to find where we can complement each other. We provide the military piece of that, but to Admiral Bradley's point, my entire career with special operations has been working with multiple different agencies in order to maximize that, whether that's the FBI and using legal authorities in different parts of the world, working with our intelligence community, or with State Department and others to make sure we leverage the full authorities and capabilities of our nation.
One of my big concerns here is the impact that the cuts to USAID within the State Department is going to have on our ability to build some trust with partner nations. That's a concern of mine. I'm not going to put you on the spot here on that topic, but I think it is something that I hope the two of you think about. Admiral Bradley, China and Russia currently waging some irregular warfare campaigns against us and our allies in a lot of different places. PRC is using violence to impose their will on the Philippines in the Second Thomas Shoal, and Russia has a long history of using irregular warfare, most recently in Ukraine. And leveraging your most recent experience as the commander of JSOC, how does the U.S. effectively wage irregular warfare to compete and win with Russia and China in the gray zone?
Senator, thank you. In my last 3 years, I've had the opportunity to be a member of the Socom Board of Directors and really watch our theater special operations commands who are responsible for operations for the joint SOF community inside those areas. And I can tell you that our principal advantage that the SOF value proposition brings is understanding and enhanced understanding of those insidious actions, which are really preying on our alliance structure. Being able to illuminate that predatory activity gives our diplomats and our whole of government and our allies power to be able to stand against it and be resilient to it. That in turn strengthens our alliance and deepens our credibility when we want to partner and build capacity there.
All right. Well, thank you. And finally, in my last minute here, General Anderson, I traveled, it's been about a year and a half now, but in the Sahel and, just parts of Africa where Wagner is pretty active, especially on social media, to exploit coups in Western Africa, commit human rights abuses. And when the Russians gain a foothold in these countries, they use a significant amount of disinformation to intimidate the local population, stifling opposing views while they claim to provide security. So, General, how does Russia's social media activity impact security and stability in Africom?
Senator, I think that is one of Russia's greatest weapons that they're employing across the continent. One of the things they use quite often is disinformation. They play on historic grievances, historic colonial issues, fears of sovereignty, and they play that up into an anti-democratic, anti-Western that then has impacts to U.S. support. I believe that the Russian influence in the information operations were critical in turning populations against the French in the Sahel. I think it is very much not in our interest with what the Russians are doing in the information domain.
Not only in Africa, but if I could just take a couple more seconds, do you feel like we're losing this information warfare with the Russians, Chinese, Iranians?
Senator, to refer to what we discussed earlier, the truth is incredibly powerful. We have that still. We are still a very credible source of information. We need to leverage that. I think we need to be more aggressive about that in this domain, but I wouldn't say we're necessarily losing it. But if we do not engage, we risk losing it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Scott.
Thank you, Chairman. Admiral Bradley, General Henderson, congratulations. First off, thanks for your service. Thank your family for being here. Thank you for their sacrifice while you've served. You both are going to do an outstanding job. Number one, do you believe that the government of China has decided to be our adversary?
Senator, I do.
Senator, I concur.
So we this committee has put a lot of effort into getting rid of Chinese drones in the military and in our country, and we've made a lot of progress. As you know, we're seeing drone warfare increase around the world. We've watched what's happened in Ukraine. We watched what's happened in the Red Sea. We watched what the Houthis have been doing to shoot down ships. So do you believe drone technology is going to be important in warfare going forward?
Senator, I do.
Absolutely, Senator.
So do you think it's really important to make sure that we don't have, Chinese products in our military, such as drones?
Senator, I know that there are nefarious aspects to Chinese products that come out, and we must be careful not to include any of those.
Senator, I would agree that we need to make sure that we don't open back doors or other vulnerabilities by we need to understand what products we're using.
So whether it's Chinese drones, computers, printers, drugs, products like garlic that's grown in raw sewage, you think it's important that we make sure none of that is used by our military, and we're never dependent on any of it?
Senator, I do resonate with those thoughts, and though I can't speak to all the details, certainly we must be cautious of anything that comes from China that would be part of our kill chain or part of a military chain of production.
Yes, Senator, I think that's something that we need to assess is where are those critical vulnerabilities and where do we need to ensure we have alternate supply chains as we look at the future.
How about drugs? You think we ought to be buying Chinese drugs for servicemen, servicewomen?
Senator, I have to say I can't speak to the details of our drug production chain. I'm sorry.
Senator, I'm not familiar with the details of that either.
Off the top of your head, do you think we ought to have Chinese drugs in our bodies? And we ought to be relying on them when we go to war? Do you think they might hold them back?
Senator, that could be a risk at any time we become dependent on a sole source. And I have full faith in the American system, and I would prefer American-made medicines.
I've encouraged to see Secretary Hegseth announced last week that is removing CCP cloud services out of the DoD, which was added, unfortunately, during the Obama era initiative. So just last question, do you think it's really important that we continue to do everything we can to get all Chinese products, all Chinese apps, everything, drones, computers, printers, drugs, everything, as much as we can out of our supply chain for our military?
Senator, I do agree with that.
Yes, Senator, I agree. We should eliminate as many vulnerabilities as we possibly can.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Scott. Senator Rosen.
Well, thank you, Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, for holding this hearing. And I want to thank our nominees and your families, of course, for your service. It takes a whole family when you give a lifetime of service. And, of course, your willingness to continue to serve. And congratulations on your nominations. And I want to go right into the Houthis and their relations with al-Shabaab, because the Iranian-backed Houthis are diversifying their military capabilities and leveraging regional conflicts to expand their influence. U.S. intelligence reports indicate that the Houthis are working to provide weapons to al-Shabaab. This development is incredibly concerning, as al-Shabaab could utilize more sophisticated Houthi weapons to target U.S. equities in the Horn of Africa, such as our base in Djibouti. So to both General and Admiral, please, to the extent that you're able in this open setting, can you share more about the growing partnership between the Houthis and al-Shabaab, the risks that it poses not only to the U.S. equities, but personnel in the region, global shipping in the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden? How are we going to address this challenge? I guess, since you're closest, Admiral, and we'll start with you.
Senator, thank you. The Houthi militia, an Iranian-supported renegade element inside Yemen, has been a destabilizing force in the southern Arabian Peninsula and across the Horn for some time, and continues to act belligerently. Any connection that they might make as an outreach to another, to a violent extremist organization like al-Shabaab, an al-Qaeda affiliate, definitely bears close concern and, frankly, interdiction. The potential for them to partner is we would see with grave concern. If confirmed as a Socom commander, I would have the responsibility as a coordinating authority for an advisor to the Secretary on counter-violent extremist organization, and a combination of those two actors would be a serious measure.
Thank you, General.
Yes, Senator, I appreciate that question. As been the commander of Special Operations Command Africa, well aware that the al-Qaeda affiliate that al-Shabaab has full intent to attack U.S. interests in the U.S. homeland if they can build the capability. The concern is that cooperation now across the Red Sea with the Houthis, who are backed by the Iranians, and what that could mean, and give them the capability, not just have the will, but now the capability to attack the U.S. or U.S. interests in a more robust way. And again, the Houthis and al-Shabaab operate in critical terrain for the United States and for global shipping. And so the means for them to disrupt that and have impact on our interests is significant.
So we need to do everything we can to stop that partnership. I want to move on to talking about our ISR strategy in the Sahel. We know that Senator Kelly is talking about the Sahel a little bit, but I want to go a little bit further because since our withdrawal from the 2 air bases in Niger last year at the behest of the host nation, our ability to conduct ISR within the Sahel throughout the African continent has been severely degraded. This also hurts other activities as well. So to both of you, can you speak to the challenges of our withdrawal from Niger, the loss of our ISR, the loss of the ISR, what it poses to countering this violent extremism in the region, these partnerships between the Houthis, al-Shabaab, and what other things, and any other groups, and what are the latest updates to establishing ISR basing elsewhere in Africa?
Senator, I appreciate that question, and we did use the ISR coming out of Niger extensively. The loss of that does make it more difficult. There is never enough ISR to meet global demand, as I understand, and that Africa as an economy of force theater will have limited assets available. I think it's important that we balance the exquisite high-end ISR capabilities where most needed, and then look at investing in other capabilities, whether that be emerging technologies that can allow some surveillance, partnering with key partners within the area, having intel sharing agreements so that we can gain understanding from them on the ground. I think those are all critical areas as we look at balancing the ISR demand across the continent. As to where they could be in the future, if confirmed, I would look into that. I'm not privy to those plans right now.
Thank you, Admiral.
And Senator, just quickly, the evolving ubiquitous information environment provides us an opportunity here. The space, soft, cyber triad, an opportunity to be able to leverage what we call horizontal ISR, to be able to leverage the more and more information available publicly that people are freely giving through their use of social media.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Rosen. Senator Budd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you both for being here. I enjoyed our meetings last week in the office. Congrats on your nominations, and thank you for your service and your sacrifice and that of your families and as well. Admiral Bradley, in our conversation last week, and I've said it publicly in this room many times before this hearing, we need more and not fewer special operations forces. A large reason is because of their ability to help train our foreign partners. And you highlighted in your advanced policy questions that SOF are uniquely suited for building partner capacity in contested and sensitive areas. So how is SOCOM building partner capacity, particularly in the Indo-Pacific, and what is the joint force getting in return for those efforts?
Senator Budd, thank you. I very much appreciated the time to visit with you, and thank you for your great support for all of our bases, my current headquarters there in the great state of North Carolina. Sir, I think the example that best illustrates the essence is the Philippines, where over a period of 20 years, for over 100 years, our strong societal relationship with the Philippine society has been strong. But just within these last 20, our ability to help train, advise, assist the Philippines to counter the terrorism threat in their country has deepened that relationship, and in fact helped us to withstand a very troubled period diplomatically during the Duterte regime. And now on the backside, we have an even stronger alliance with the Philippines, which will be critical as we look at any action of deterrence in the Indo-Pacific. I certainly wouldn't want to speak for Admiral Paparo to talk about the overall region and where this fits relative to his other priorities, but I know from a soft perspective, our contribution to partnerships throughout the region are important, and we really bring that credibility from the counterterrorism fight to help leaven and deepen those.
Thank you very much. General Anderson, I want to read you a quote from the DoD's 2024 annual report to Congress on military and security developments involving the PRC. So I'll tee it up with this and I'll ask you a question about it. It says, some of PRC's Belt and Road Initiative projects could create potential military advantages such as PLA access
to select foreign ports to pre-position necessary logistics to sustain naval developments or deployments in water such as distant as the Indian Ocean, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Atlantic Ocean. So here's my concern. I'm concerned that the PRC's access to ports and the potential military advantage that this could give them. So alongside Senators Kelly and Scott, I introduced the Strategic Ports Reporting Act. It's a bill to require monitoring of the PRC's access to foreign ports. So if confirmed, do you commit to looking into the PRC's access to foreign ports in your area of responsibility?
Senator, if confirmed, I will look into that, definitely.
Thank you. And would you be willing to share with us some of your concerns in that area, particularly with PRC access to foreign ports?
Senator, I think as we've seen across the Indian Ocean into the African area, AOR, into the Atlantic and even the Mediterranean, China is investing in ports globally. I think that should be concerning to us. I think it should be concerning to us not only that they could potentially use those as dual-use military ports, but what access can they deny U.S. forces or U.S. commerce as necessary in time of conflict. And so I think that this is an absolute critical area that we need to understand the vulnerabilities that may be posed by this. It doesn't mean that we don't believe in free commerce and economics, but at the same time, we need to understand our national security interests and what these may entail.
Thank you very much. Question about the North Carolina National Guard, and we have, in particular, we have state partners in the Africom AOR. It's Malawi, Zambia, and Botswana. So, General, how do you view the future of the state partnership program and its ability to strengthen regional stability in Africa?
Senator, I think the state partnership program is one of the greatest programs we have within the department. It builds long-term relationships. The nice thing about the National Guard and the partner nation is those same people will see each other decade after decade, and that builds a really powerful relationship that I think I know we can build upon. As a matter of fact, it was the California National Guard that we called upon to get the first information in Ukraine because they had long-standing relationships with that state partnership program there. The same thing can happen in Africa, where a small investment can have a great return for us in the future.
Thank you both. Chairman.
Thank you. Further questions? We're told that Senator Shaheen is on her way. Does
I can fill a little time, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, he's great at that.
And there's a vote going on also. But yes, the gentleman is
I was
recognized.
struck by the Admiral's comment that they'd moved 27 times in their career. My first job was moving furniture for Allied van lines in this area. Most of our customers were military families, and I'll never forget a military spouse saying, in terms of damage to the furniture, 7 moves equals a fire. So congratulations on surviving multiple fires.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator King, I'm a veteran myself, and I only served 4 years active duty. It seems to me that those people who've made 20 moves have been able to throw away a lot of things that my children and grandchildren may have to deal with, since I haven't moved now in over 30 years. We think within 10 seconds, Senator Shaheen will materialize. There's a vote going on, and we're trying to do our best.
Thank you very much,
I don't believe we'll be able to go on with our hearing. So I want to thank our witnesses for their testimony, and there will be an opportunity for questions on the record. And so I would remind I would inform members that questions for the record will be due to the committee by 5 p.m. today. And with that, we are adjourned.